Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of Slammin Synapses right here on Facebook and YouTube. Once again, this segment will be submitted for possible inclusion to the PW Insider family of websites. It's pwinsider.com, pwinsiderelite.com, and pwinsiderextra.com. Like I said many times before, the Elite site is a great paid site. Lots of great audio, lots of great video. If you want to keep up with the latest on the CM Punk situation in WWE, by all means, check it out. If you're viewing me, get some other business out of the way here. If you're viewing me through YouTube, you'll see a subscribe button somewhere up here. Click on that. Keep up to date with the goings on here at Slammin Synapses. Also, leave me a comment at the bottom as well. If you're viewing me through a phone, there's many different ways of subscribing and leaving a comment. I'm sure you can find the way for the phone there. Like I said before, I will have to give you guys a tutorial for, in my case, the iPhone, just to give you a heads up there. Oh, and also get some other business out the way. I have a new group on Facebook. It's called I Love TV. That's I Love TV, pretty much self-explanatory. If you want to join it, by all means, do a search for it. It's one of these things where I have to add you in, but I would have no problem with it. But check it out. If you love TV, that's a place to go. So we're going to get into the topic of what we're going to go over today, and that is WWE, and I'm going to call this WWE the other white meat. Now, this is going to be about those shows that aren't Raw related. We're going to talk about Smackdown, NXT, ECW, Superstars. What else? What else was that show? Yeah, we're going. So, yeah, we're going to talk about those other shows. Now, I'm a video game player. Well, kind of, sort of. Used to be more so back in the day, but I play Smackdown versus Raw. I did play Fire Pro Wrestling. A bunch of other wrestling-related games as I grew up, and I created a character based on me, based on my look, though with some moves that I probably couldn't do without risk of injuring myself. But during these games, it's like I create myself, I go for championships, I go against other people. Very rarely do I play as other people. I mean, you could give me a game with CM Punk, Batista, Undertaker, John Cena, Randy Orton, Ric Flair, things of that nature. It's very rare when I play as them. Why? Because my main concern is getting my character to titles, to championships, to winning, to unlocking stuff through my character. Now, I may take a look at other players just for entrances or just to play around, but for the most part, and this is not egocentric, but it's all about my character and what I do with it in the game. Now, how does this relate to the topic that I'm discussing? Simple. In the WWE video game of life, it seems like WWE puts all their eggs in the basket of Raw at the risk of taking attention away from Smackdown, from NXT, from Superstars, from ECW, things of that nature, and it really hurts them in a big way. I mean, I was a big fan of the original ECW. Very revolutionary, very, very over the top, very technical in its nature. I was a big fan of that. I also, believe it or not, I was one of these people that liked and it took me a while to get to that point, into liking the WWE version of ECW. Why did I like it? Because it gave a focus to people that would not normally be shown. People like Yoshitatsu, people like Trent Beretta, Kalen Croft, Zack Ryder, who you know it, and plus it gave a pretty much field for people like Christian and Mark Henry and Kane a chance to kind of like be the superstars on the show. They held titles, and like I said, the beauty part of the show is that it gave people a chance to shine who wouldn't have normally been given that shot. I mean, ever since ECW went out, when was the last time you saw Yoshitatsu on a regular basis? Sure, they drag him out once in a while, but before before on ECW, Yoshi was on the show almost every week or every other week, and you kind of got behind him. I was kind of hoping that if ECW stayed around, that Yoshi would be the ECW heavyweight champion, but alas, that was not to be. But yeah, you look at Trent Beretta, for instance. He was on ECW every week. Granted, they dig him out of mothballs from time to time, but how often do you see him? All these people that were on ECW on a regular basis, do you see them now? No, they just got discarded. ECW could theoretically still be on the air right now if they knew how to focus on it, but they didn't because it wasn't a Raw show. NXT, great potential as a show. It's like, okay, you're going to take these guys, you're going to put them with the mentors, and you're going to see who's going to rise to the top, cream of the crop, and be a superstar. Until they got stupid, because every time they would have a challenge, and it was like you had obstacle courses, but then you had like milk drinking competitions, you had promos that made no sense, you just had some really stupid challenges for them to go through. And if I'm going to invest my time in you, I mean, it was almost like watching the AWA Team Challenge series, like the turkey chase competition. And during that, it's like for the potential that it could have been, they killed it with the stupidity. And also, because it wasn't a Raw show, they really didn't focus on it much. I mean, they brought it to Sci-Fi, they brought ECW to Sci-Fi. That could have been something. NXT could have been something big instead of being pushed as a internet-only show. Now I know there are people out there that watch TV on the internet. Granted, by the fact that I'm doing this segment through YouTube as an internet-based thing, I mean, I'm not trying to be hypocritical here, but typically it will take a lot for me to watch a full show on the net. Now, personally, if I had a better computer, HD cable, hooked to my high-def TV, then maybe I'd be watching stuff more often, but I'm not the type to watch a full show on the internet. And for those of you that are watching me now, thank you for that. But yeah, NXT could be something that's still on the show, if still on the air, TV-wise, and they're not getting so stupid about it. That's what caused the ratings to go down for ECW. That's what caused the ratings to go down for NXT. Superstars, great premise. WG, and they were going to be getting exposure. I mean, granted, it wasn't as big as a USA, a TBS, or stations of that matter, but at least it gave them the outlet to broadcast their stuff. Now, at first, it was an excellent show. I mean, you had the superstars on it. It was WWE superstars, but gradually it turned into the other show, where some shows would be headlined by Vladimir Kozlov and Santino Marella versus people. It's like the potential that it had got killed because like I said, it wasn't a Raw show. They pushed it with the possibility that it was going to be like a Raw type show, a Raw Light type show, but it's not Raw. So, as is the case with NXT, it became a web-only show. WGN got rid of it because it wasn't the show that was pushed or was promised to them. It was just another show that didn't have the push behind it, that didn't have the machine behind it, and now it's just a internet-only show. Smackdown. Smackdown, as time went on, as affiliates changed, got to My Network TV, and they started pulling away from that. Started pulling wrestlers away, started putting them on Raw. And then, as they got to Sci-Fi, they figured, oh, maybe we should build this portion of ourselves up again. So they moved people over to that, but they never really had the push behind it. Why? It's not a Raw show. And that's the thing. It wasn't a Raw show. Instead of putting the machine behind it as a secondary major show, and they could have done it without any problem. It's like you could have had your Raw, you could have had your SmackDown, and they could have each been highly pushed, highly watched shows. But Raw, they get behind. But SmackDown, they kind of get behind it, but they're not fully committed to it. And since it's not Raw, SmackDown just kind of... Now granted, myself, between the two shows, I love SmackDown. SmackDown is the wrestling-based thing. They don't do as much silly stuff as they do on Raw. It's more of a show based towards the stuff in the ring. I mean, granted, they do silly stuff outside, but it's about the stuff in the ring, and that's what I enjoy. It's not the silliness of Raw. It's not the hokiness over the top. It's based on ring action. But because it's not Raw, it doesn't have the same weight of Raw, even though it could have been. I mean, SmackDown started off this hot show. It was the Rock show. It was laying the SmackDown on your candy, whatever. But then gradually, just because it wasn't Raw, it wasn't pushed as much. Now, don't get me wrong. I like watching Raw. Raw's been in my mental framework since day one, when I've had a chance to watch it. But for the most part, there's all these other shows that they could have gotten behind and pushed, but they lost track. You look back even further still. You look at their Live Wire show. Great premise, call-in show. You get people's questions. It's this Q&A thing, but people got too real. People got too real on the questions. I think they kind of got afraid of that. That Live Wire went from this great question and answer show to just another clip show. And that's also another problem that they have with their shows. They start off with a great premise behind it, that it's going to go places, but gradually it turns into a clip show. I mean, granted, it was kind of a clip show before, but it goes from a main focus to, okay, this would happen on Raw, this would happen on SmackDown. It's like, we're going to do a little talky segment, and just, it's a clip show. And that's what all their shows tend to, that's what most of their shows tend to degrade to, without a focus behind it. I'm kind of surprised that NXT and Superstars and things of that nature haven't become a fully clip show. WWE, you have enough shows that you could do so much with. You have so much possibilities of pushing each show as an equal, to the point where it's like, oh no, it's I can't miss this. I gotta watch this. Back in the day, there was Superstars. There was Wrestling Challenge, and granted, those were enhancement talent type shows. I mean, your main event type shows would be during the ratings month, which I think was November and February. That's when you'd see like the stars really get dragged out. I mean, granted, back at that time, it was to sell. It was basically to get you to go to the house show. But for the most part, it was something that was a must-watch every week, because it wasn't that, if you didn't have cable, it wasn't that often that you would see wrestling on broadcast TV. And that's what it was. It was like, okay, here's a chance that we're going to show our superstars in action, get these feuds started on the show, get you to go to the arena. I've touched on this in a previous show, but basically it was to get you to go to the house show, so they really didn't have to go fully behind it, because they knew people were going, because they went to house shows on a regular basis. But nowadays, there's just so many shows at your disposal that you could work with and focus on, and put some sort of muscle behind it, put some sort of focus behind it. I mean, you could basically put every show as a different type show, but still have that feel of, okay, this is a WWE show. This isn't Raw. This is a WWE show. I mean, it's like, I turn on the dial, it's sci-fi, it's SmackDown, I'm gonna watch it, it's a WWE show. NXT, I'm flipping the dial. What? They're giving people a chance to come up from developmental and further, or not on a higher scale, to become a WWE superstar, I gotta watch that. I mean, not the stupid stuff, but you see them grow, you see them expand. Once upon a time, I had a gift that I could watch someone on TV and say, that's going to be a world champion. That is a definite world champion. 9 times out of 10, I was right. You know why? Because they knew how to push. They got behind people. They gave them that momentum. Nowadays, like I mentioned before, it's the whole food thing. You turn on the stove. Watch one of my, I forget which archive it is, but check out that. It goes into that. But if you push people and you hold back, you push them again, you hold back. You push them again, you hold back. They never get anywhere. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Once bitten, twice shy. You got to get behind your people. You got to push them. Got to give them a chance to grow. Because if you don't allow them to grow, people aren't going to get behind them, and people aren't going to watch shows as much as they used to. You got to get behind your shows. Got to get behind your Smackdown. You got to get behind your NXT. You got to get behind your superstars. You got to get behind whatever show you have running right now. Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket with Raw, because if you do, people will eventually eventually turn on that one. Why? Because that's how they're being fed. It's like, okay, you're not going to watch this type of action on your other show. You're going to watch it here on Raw. Those of you who are watching the other shows, you're wasting your time. Because we're not putting the effort into those shows that we should be to get them over. Like I said, ECW, great promise when it started. Got killed because they didn't lock focused on it, because they didn't care about it anymore. NXT, great show, great promise. Stupid skits and stupid storylines. Killed that. Superstars, great promise, great show. They lost focus behind it. And what is it now? Show on the internet no one talks about. NXT, show on the internet no one talks about. Like I said, the fact that you guys are watching me on a YouTube video, like I said, not being hypocritical, but if your show's not out there for people to see, how are they going to know about it? I mean, on Raw and SmackDown, when have you ever heard them mention, okay, you can watch Superstars on WWE.com, or you can watch NXT on WWE.com, or YouTube, or wherever they air it? You don't. When was, like, go watch some Raw, go watch some SmackDown for the past 2 or 3 weeks. When have they ever mentioned that you could watch these other shows online, on the internet? When have they ever touched in it? When have they ever, like, grasped and touched on it? They haven't. WWE Classics on Demand. Granted, it doesn't get the exposure that it should, because there's some cable companies that haven't signed on to it. But they could be a profitable place. Like myself, I mentioned this on, I sent this in as a question on one of the mailbags on PW Insider with regards to putting it on a PS3. Myself, I would definitely get it. If it was offered me tomorrow on the PS3 through the PS Network, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Network for those of you who don't know, I would get it in a heartbeat. I have Hulu on there, I have Netflix on there, I have Vudu on there, tons of stuff to watch. It would make me very happy if I could tune in tomorrow and see that I could order WWE Classics on Demand on my PlayStation 3. They have tons of, they bought a whole lot of libraries. They don't tap into those. I think they bought them for the fact that they don't want other people to touch them, but that's just speculation. But there's so much stuff that they never show. Like, what good is 100,000 hours of programming if on every DVD you're going to show the same stuff over and over again? It's like they focus, like I said, they focus too much on Raw that they forget about everything else. They're WWE. They still mean something. They used to mean more though. It's like WWF on TV, gotta watch it. Nowadays it's like WWE, it's like something happened on Raw this past couple of weeks that I will go into at a future time, that I kind of touched on previously. But it's how you treat your audience. If you don't treat them with respect, if you don't treat them with sense, if you don't treat them like they have a brain, they will leave you. You have people like me that's been watching since 82. 1982 I've been watching this. I've been having this sickness ever since. I watch it. Before I used to watch any show that was on. Whether it be Raw, Smackdown, Superstars, Wrestling Challenge, Nitro, Thunder. If it was on, I watched it. Why? Because I like the product. Because I had to watch it. Because there was too much stuff going on for me not to. Nowadays, it's like, I watch Raw. I watch Smackdown. Impact, I watch if I'm in the mood. But their product's kind of fallen so much that if anything's happened in the past 2 or 3 weeks to pick it up, I haven't seen it. Because of past history has caused me not to care enough to see it. I'll just watch it if I just happen to be bored and can't find anything else to watch. I used to watch wrestling a lot. Now it's like, at most, on a good week, I watch about 3 hours. 3 or 4 hours a week. Whereas before I knew I was watching a good 12 to 14 hours. Without hesitation, without any problem. Nowadays it's like I said, why should I watch it? Why should I focus on it? Why should I invest my time? Yes, I know I have the sickness, but there's so many other things I could watch. WWE, for you guys to be more successful than where you are now, and you could say that your dividends are working, you have this big war chest and all the things of that nature, but if your pay-per-views keep suffering, I mean, granted, a pay-per-view every month is a bit draining cash-wise. I watch it at a blast area anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if you're wanting people to spend $40, $50 a month, you gotta have a product that makes them want to watch. Otherwise, they're gonna be like, why am I ordering this? I have so many things that I could put my money towards. Why am I ordering a pay-per-view if I'm only gonna be disappointed? You have more than Raw. Use them. Don't be like the video game where you just take that one character because it's yours and do whatever you can with it. Use your other players. Use your other superstars. Use your other shows to get your product across. Otherwise, with UFC on the horizon, about to jump on Fox, and make no mistake, WWE having a show on Tuesday, it's not a fluke. That was by design. With the UFC on the horizon coming soon to Fox, WWE, you need to do things to step up to the game. Otherwise, it's going to be the way WCW kept beating you in the ratings for years straight. I love the product. I'm a wrestling fan. I'm proud to admit that I'm a wrestling fan. I have no shame in admitting that I'm a wrestling fan. You ask me, I mean, look at me. It's like I have no problem wearing shirts like this to work. And this shirt, it still fits. It's about 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, but I still wear it. Why? Because I love the product. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But if you're not giving me anything to watch, why should I? So, I think we're going to wrap up this segment this week. Been a bit long-winded today. So, like I said, there's just so much stuff that they could do. So much possibility, so many roads that they could go down if they knew how to operate and work their shows a little bit better. No hot-shotting, no changing things on the fly. You have to have focus. That's why soap operas tend to be unpopular. That's why shows like All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital, Melrose Place, things of that nature were successful. Even though they were camping over the top, they had some sort of focus. Granted, they may have changed storylines 50 million times a Sunday, but they had a focus. It's like, and even if we had different writers and now you're no longer my son, but you're my uncle, at least they had storylines to make you interested. That's so, it's just a thing. You watch networks like the Food Network. They're known for their shows like Iron Chef America, known for shows like Chopped, known for shows like the next Food Network star. But they put focus on everything. Every show has importance. You look at, what's another good example? You look at NBC. They have SVU, Law and Order. They have, what else do they have? Okay, bad example. They don't have much. No, correction. I'm kidding. But yeah, if you look at the major people out there, the major companies out there, who have a vast amount of things out there, they focus on them. They give them a push. I mean, granted, they know that they're popular in one area, but they don't put all their eggs in one basket. Why? Because it's not a good business decision. It's not a good business feel. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, eventually they're going to overflow. Eventually eggs are going to break. Then where are you at now? Guess I have nothing else for this segment today. But I do thank you for joining me here. If you want to drop me a comment, like I said, you can drop it. If you ring me through YouTube, you see a box there. If you ring me through your phone, there's something there as well. Email me at agurrier@yahoo.com. You'll see a graphic on the screen. You can check me out at Facebook at Albert Gurrier. Also, you'll see that on the graphic. And like I said, check out my group on Facebook called I Love TV. It's an invite. It's not an invite thing, but just click on join and I'll get you added lickety split. So that's going to be it for today. For Albert Gurrier. Oh, before we go any further, for those of you still listening, for those of you still watching, I think we're like 20 minutes into this, but to those that have been affected by Hurricane Irene, to those of you who have been affected on the East Coast with the floods, with the winds, with the weather, those of you who may know someone who may have lost their life, those that may know someone that was affected heavily by the situation out there, my heart goes out to you. My condolences go out to you. And I pray and can only hope that everything gets fixed, that everything in terms of damage becomes minimalized. That lives could be gotten back to, homes could be restored, lives could be brought back into balance. To those of you out there, from the bottom of my heart, I pray for you and just hope everything's going to be okay. For Albert Gurrier, this is Slammin Synapses saying good night, so long, and peace out. Goodbye, everybody.